to INS, the International News Service, your source for the most important weird news from across the globe. With news analyst Kevin Harrison, actor, comedian, and musician Mike Wiebe, and professional commentator Brian Camp. INS, the news you need.
I don't remember. So Bionic Man predated Bionic Woman?
Yes, there's the Bionic Man. Then there was a Bionic Woman who also had a Bionic dog.
But weirdly, all three were in completely different universes, right? There was no overlap. They were just
crossed over a number of times.
And Sasquatch was in that universe, but I think he was an alien robot.
That's, I don't know, non-deviant washing. That's just cover.
I don't appreciate what they did with Sasquatch in that. It was very inaccurate. They kind of tried to like tone down what Sasquatch has done to people and continue to do for years and years. And I feel like that's probably why there was never a task force on is the softening of the image. You know, this was Bionic Woman was the Jimmy Fallon tussling Sasquatch's hair, lightening it up for the American public.
Wow.
That's how I feel.
Thank you for having. I'm going to honor your courage. I'm just going to say that. I honor your courage and standing up.
Thank you. You're welcome. I mean, I know I'm a hero.
That's right.
Possibly the greatest American hero.
No, that was William Catt.
Yeah,
the curly blonde-haired man era.
Back when curly blonde-haired could do something in this world. There's no curly blonde-headed men anymore. They got canceled.
They did get canceled ever since Luke and Laura.
Yeah. I think that's probably because Luke was kind of abusive.
Who was Luke and Laura?
No, don't you? Come on.
No.
Of all people who should know this,
if Ghostface Killah can make a reference to Luke and Laura, I feel like you can know about Luke and Laura.
No, we only got 2 channels where I lived, okay? 3 if the wind blew just right.
And one of them showed General Hospital. I guarantee it.
Mm-hmm.
It was the most showed show.
Did it beat Princess Di, or did Princess Di's wedding beat
Princess Di? It was the bigger, more people in the UK actually watched the Luke and Laura wedding.
Right.
Were they at the same time? Did they schedule that as a ratings coup?
No, it's just like when you look the numbers up against each other.
Oh, okay.
All right. It rivaled the first landing on the moon.
Mm-hmm. And a lot of people say that like one of the reasons that Princess Di had that wreck was because it was right after her wedding, and she found out that the numbers were worse, and she was just like, "I'm getting the fuck out of here!" And she jumped in her car and drove off.
That's not what happened at all. Those aren't even the same decade.
That is what happened.
But you know what? Unlike Princess Di, Laura still alive.
That's true.
So who wore it better?
And so is Luke.
Yeah, he is.
As opposed to the prince who was riding passenger in the seat when Princess Diana did that.
That's not right. The prince is still alive.
Yeah.
No,
Princess
No, the one that died.
Are you saying Prince is alive? Like, I don't know all of them. I know that one. Prince died like 3 years ago.
There's a bunch that lived for sure, but you know it's a revolving. You know, it's a revolving thing. They just have another kid, and they're like, oh, that's Prince Fauntleroy or whatever.
You say Fauntleroy?
Fauntleroy.
Fauntleroy.
Mommy. Mommy.
You think Princess Di is one of those things that, like, for the Brits, they'll make fun of a little bit, but they don't like it when people not from there make fun of? Like, I don't know, we're making fun of her.
I don't know. It has to have softened. I don't know. It seems like the only people that care about royals are like really old people, or just like super weirdos.
But I thought they all cared over there. I thought it was a big deal.
But I mean, the kids can't care about stuff like that.
I don't know. Well, she was the people's princess, so.
What?
That's what she was. They called her that.
Really?
They called her the people's princess, yeah.
The people's princess, yeah. She was a conduit to the commoner. She lifted up the people of of Britain who otherwise were trampled under the steel boots of royalty for centuries. And she was the first one to reach a hand down, a soft, begloved hand, and grasped them around the wrist and pulled them up. She was the people's princess.
Yep. Over here we have Nia Peoples Princess. Nia Peoples was...
That's a reference 11 people are going to get.
Took us
that's a good one.
Yeah. Look up P-E-E-P-L-E-S, folks. Yeah. Nia Peoples.
I think, if I remember right, I worked on a movie that she was supposed to be on, like, God, when I was like 21, this guy's like, hey, want to be an assistant director on a movie? And I said, yes, I do. And I had to call Nia Peoples to send her the script.
Wow.
And then she wisely, at the last minute, said, I don't want to do this.
What?
Because it was going to be a terrible movie and it wasn't going to make any money.
Oh, that's never stopped me.
That's right.
You know what, though? My dad, growing up, my dad worked some kind of government job. And I thought he never did anything that show business related at all. But I found out he was an extra in a really famous movie from the 60s.
Wait, what's this?
This is a Pruder film. He played a guy behind a knoll.
Oh,
like a D&D knoll?
And I asked him what was it like? Was the cast cool? And he said that Jackie O was hysterical. But I don't think he said he actually said she was hysterical. And he said that JFK knew all his lines right off the top of his head. And that Lee Harvey Oswald played the part perfectly. Mm-hmm. And then he disappeared in a cloud of cigarette smoke.
Wow.
But he was in the garage. We lived at the same house, so.
Right. Well, are we ready to talk about the news?
I think so.
All right.
That's what we're doing, right?
Mm-hmm.
We might have just broken a story of an assassination of a U.S. president. We might have just...
I'm talking about a movie. He was in a movie.
Oh, okay. Oh. Yeah. Right. Otherwise, he'd be dead. That's why all those good folks are waiting for him. All those...
He just keeps coming back. He keeps showing up back over there.
He'll be back soon, fellas.
Yeah.
Where he will magically have identical politics as yours.
Yeah.
I don't think that if JFK was going to come back, I don't think he would come to Dallas because Dallas is triggering, literally.
Welcome to the International News Service. We're your hosts. I'm Kevin Harrison, along with...
I am Brian Camp.
I am Warren Commission superstar Mike Wiebe.
Is there a fourth this time around?
No, Mark Ryan. Mark Ryan is not on here, but he's out working the hard beats, giving us information about upcoming events where we can possibly meet people who we've discussed. Seriously, though, what if we went and we met Erin Gray and we told her how much we talked about her on the podcast? Maybe we could get Erin Gray to be a guest on the podcast.
I think it would come across like exactly like this. Hey, we have a podcast and we talk about you on it, and you're real pretty, and can you be on it?
Yeah, no, we'll have Mike talk to her, not you.
Yeah. I'll use my famous alpha brain interrogation, which is a technique of talking to using the alpha brain persuasion and the alpha brain interactions, monkey mindsets, that just help you interact with people, especially if those people are ladies.
Now when you say famous, who is this famous amongst?
I mean, it's sold tons and tons of copies. It's all on my website. www.geocities.com/alpha brain monkey mindset.biz.
It's been a long time since we've talked about your GeoCities page. I'm glad that came up. The counter's got to be over 1,000.
Oh, it's flipped over. It's back to it's. If you look at it, like right now, if you look at it, it says like 86. 86, but that's because it keeps flipping over.
Oh, wow.
Does it still play the 8-bit soundtrack, Eye of the Tiger, as flashing Christmas lights on the border.
Yeah, it does. We've got that. And then there's one page where I wanted to, on the contact page, everything, the fonts are all in cursive and it plays for Fleur de Lis.
All right. Kevin, you're supposed to keep us on track.
Yeah, so I'm going to try something new here. We'll see if this happens or not. And if not...
For the listener, we're trying something new.
I'll either forget next week or Mark will cut it out and I'll stop doing it. Even though I mispronounced his name, so he's definitely cutting it out.
You mispronounced Mark?
I said Mark.
You say Merc? Merc. Ooh, we should call him Merc.
Merc. Ooh, that's fucking cool. That'd be a good...
Cool.
That's Mark's rap name.
Yeah. Merc
Ryan.
Hey, he does have a new project out. He just...
Yeah, I listened to it. I liked it.
It's good, right?
ODX.
ODX. That's EX.
Yep. Operation Diaphragm X-ray.
Mm-hmm.
Nice.
It's a good way to remember it.
So we've got 2 news stories, a bonus story for our Patreon listeners. We've got an update in the arts and culture section. And then Mike concludes the Glen A Larsonaissance.
Just real quick, Kevin, just remind everybody that this is a phase 2 podcast.
Phase 2.
That means so much to them when they weren't around for any of the meetings we had on this.
2.0.
Our listeners know. Phase 2.
So our first story comes to us from the Daily Record. It's in Scotland.
Oh.
Is it vinyl? Just vinyl?
The Daily Newspaper Record.
Gotta get expensive.
So we've covered the Loch Ness Monster on the podcast before and pointed out that the first sighting goes back to the year 565 CE. But despite numerous sightings over the centuries...
Wait, what's CE?
Common Era.
AD. I thought it's AD.
Yeah, I'm using archaeologist numbers, and they say CE.
It's BC before Christ and AD after death, which is a misnomer because he came back to life. So,
well, also that implies that Jesus lived for like 1 day or something if it's before Christ and after death.
I'm just saying that we all agree that we're not going to rename UFOs. I think we can all agree.
Yeah.
Right.
Everybody
UFOs.
knows
Same
BC.
page.
AD and BC.
So,
BC.
despite numerous sightings over the centuries, no one has been able to prove the animal known as Nessie exists. Now, a paranormal investigator named Ron Halliday may have an answer. Brian's already shaking his head. He hasn't even heard the story. He's putting his hypothesis ahead of the information.
I would like to point out that my head shake did not interrupt Kevin. So if the story is getting off track, it is not my fault. Although I can't help but think that the comic BC has now been ruined by you changing the way we keep track of the years.
How's that even going to exist anymore?
When was the last time you read BC?
I read it all the time.
Yeah.
You write some funny things on that rock.
Yep. That rock says all kinds of crazy shit.
Mm-hmm.
I'll get a BC tattoo right now. It would be pretty good. I don't never seen a BC tattoo.
If you could get a BC
That's a good
tattoo
idea.
while we podcasted, that would be pretty great.
Let's do it.
All right.
Patreon. If somebody in the Patreon wants to pay for me to get a BC tattoo while I do this,
if anything ever signified that we have become a phase 3 podcast, that would be it.
That
that's true.
Phase 3 enters.
Mm-hmm. All right, sorry, Kevin. Please continue.
Paranormal investigator Ron Halliday suggests that the Loch Ness Monster could be hiding in another dimension, adding, quote, with the Loch Ness Monster, people could be seeing a dinosaur that existed in the past. They may be seeing something that looks solid, but isn't actually in our world, that could spread across a whole range of things, such as UFO sightings. He also added, quote, some people are more psychic than others. They can pick up these experiences while others may not. It's possible that some may walk into these portals without realizing it. Then they can see these things. And then he added, to my mind, it does provide an explanation to a whole range of paranormal phenomena. Of course, the article also points out that this is more or less the plot to the hit Netflix show Stranger Things. Ron Halliday is the author of several books, including UFO Scotland, Scotland's X-Files, and Famous Scots and the Supernatural.
This guy's really filled that niche in Scotland.
Yeah, he's a smart dude.
Good for him.
Well, I mean, that's not a new theory that a lot of this weirdness is interdimensional.
Is it a new theory in Scotland, though?
Perhaps. I mean, a lot of this is just rebranding some of the tenets of quantum magic, and frankly, I think even you'll have to speak to this, Mike. But sound bathing, is that this is
a little bit.
These are things that practitioners have held true for quite a while. So it's interesting to hear a paranormal investigator spin on something that we've known about for quite a while, right?
Yeah, they're catching up. They're always playing catch up,
right? Playing catch up, and look, they are the conduit to people who don't have a connection to that world, and that's okay, and that's why they're always going to be a little bit behind here.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think that this is terribly groundbreaking in that respect. So good for him, I guess.
And I do want to make sure that this is a real fellow and not a Mike Myers character.
No, I looked up Ron Halliday, and he was the co-founder of a paranormal conference they have every year in Scotland.
Well, that seems like something Mike Myers would possibly.
Are you legitimately concerned that we've been duped by?
I mean, Mike Myers loves nothing more than dressing up his characters. Does he not love dressing up in crazy outfits?
He does.
Does he not love doing a Scottish accent more than anything?
Yeah.
He does.
Yes.
Does he not love trying to pull fast ones on this very news broadcast?
Well, this is starting to feel pretty concerning to me now too, Mike. When you put it that way,
he's emailed me multiple times with bullshit stories.
Yeah.
He wants us to do slander about Dana Carvey, and I'm not going to do that.
I think we're fans of Dana Carvey, right?
I'm a fan of Dana Carvey.
I saw his last Netflix special, and it was bad.
Well, that's just because he got up there and told the truth.
Oh, no. Was it one of those?
He's like, these are 7 words you're not allowed to say no more. And then he did them all in the church lady voice.
What were those words?
Well, let me tell you, they were. No, I'm not going to tell you. No, I like Dana Carvey. I think he's fun. He was, I haven't seen his new special though. So
I mean, it's like 5 years old now or something. But
that's not new at all.
But I'll stand with the 80s Dana
probably
Carvey.
Fucking having to defend himself from Mike Myers all the goddamn time.
Right.
Fair.
God, imagine trying to write when you've got that guy doing everything he can to sabotage your life. So
just running around going, "Get in my belly" and all that stuff.
Oh man,
get in my belly. Yeah, baby. Mike Dana Carvey's just sitting there trying to write, and he's just like, "Go, baby, swing."
It's like Rich Little just joined us.
Now do your Ronald Reagan.
Well. Hey, I gotta. This is a Mike Myers. It's very specific, regional Mike Myers.
You're not gonna do a Reagan.
I'll get back to Reagan, but this is regional.
Yeah, sure.
This is regional.
Okay.
This is Mike Myers doing a regional from my area. This is Austin, Texas powers.
Okay.
Austin, Texas powers. B Caves Road.
What?
You kind of have to live here and know that there's a road called Bee Caves. It's very specific.
The area.
There's a road in Austin called Bee Caves. I'll do it again. Bee Caves Road.
Dumbest thing we've ever done. There's no bearing on it.
No, it's Austin, Texas powers. So
I think we
Bee Caves Road. It's a big road if you live in Austin, to everyone that doesn't live in Austin.
Yeah.
So you ready for our next story?
Sure.
So our next story comes to us from ABA Journal, also known as the American Bar Association Journal.
Ooh, yeah, I'm a bartender. I probably have a lot. I have an article in there about making Flamin' Dr. Peppers.
This is a lawyer journal.
We cover people getting sued and bars getting sued.
Yeah, it's a big deal.
Dram shop law is what we got to talk about.
What?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, every issue is going to talk about, the legal consequences of over-serving someone. So.
And the legal consequences of flair bartending. You are legally a douchebag if you spin your bottles around.
That is true, actually.
Yeah.
So in late June, the Ohio Supreme Court took an unusual step and indefinitely suspended a lawyer. Now, lawyers are suspended all the time, but this usually happens because of something they did in their duties. For example, the attorney
Please those booties.
Yes. For example, the attorney might have stolen from a client or provided woefully inadequate advocacy for a client. In this case, however, the man was indefinitely suspended for a history of driving while naked. In June 2020, he pleaded guilty after he was arrested for driving while nude. Then, in September 2020, he was charged for another instance of nude driving. Then, the lawyer pleaded guilty or no contest to 3 more incidences of public indecency, and he admitted to more instances in which he didn't get caught. It turns out that in 2006, the man was also fired from his job as a prosecutor for allegedly walking around naked after hours in a government building. Now, it's not all bad news, however. The Ohio Supreme Court said the naked lawyer would be reinstated if he could abstain from alcohol and fully comply with a recommended mental health treatment program.
Well, so he's doing this while he's drunk? Is that the implication?
It
or is he
wasn't
just
clear.
a dude who likes to be naked?
No, it seemed like he liked to be naked.
I think he should double down on that and become the naked lawyer. The naked truth.
Oh.
And you have billboards of him walking around in the nude.
Okay.
Mhm.
But also holding
driving around in the nude.
A law book. Buck naked standing there and, he's like looking in the camera and going like, are people telling you that you're not allowed to go naked? And then when he points his, dangus jangles and stuff like that. And then he's like, get back your rights. You should be allowed to go naked anywhere else. That's why I'm the naked lawyer. And then it cuts to him like standing in front of a semi buck naked on the highway. Wow. And he's just like, take back your rights.
Like proudly daring the semi to hit him.
Yeah. No. Like the semi's parked and he's walking along the semi completely naked.
Okay.
And he's going like, we don't have time to play around with getting dressed up before we go to court. That's why I show up to court buck naked. And sometimes when I start to win a case and I can tell the jury's going in my direction, you'll notice something change about me. I'm starting to get chubby. But that's because in Austin there really is a guy who's like the lawyer that rocks, the rock and roll attorney,
right? And
he's got dreadlocks and he's like next to a guitar, and I hear he does a good job. So I don't see does it say anywhere in the law that you're not allowed to be naked?
I mean, yeah.
Is there anywhere in the books? It's sort of like an Air Bud situation.
No, there are literally laws against driving naked.
I don't think there are. I don't think
against
there
public
are.
indecency of being naked in public.
Well, what if you're tastefully nude? You ever heard of that? Tastefully nude? Tasteful nudes?
Wow, that's a good question.
I mean, I think that you could be tastefully nude at home, but I don't think you could be tastefully nude at Bennigan's.
I don't think that Bennigan's would have a problem with that.
No. They sell potato skins.
I've seen, yeah, exactly. You don't want to get some of that hot wings on your junk, but you should be allowed to be naked in your car, right?
I mean, I let me ask you guys that. This is a good question. So, how bothered would you be if you were driving down the highway and you look over and the guy next to you is completely nude, but not in a touchy way, but maybe he is making unbroken eye contact with you the entire time.
No,
well, I wouldn't be able to tell he was nude. Other than the way shirt up, there's plenty of dudes that roll around without shirts on, and I don't assume they're nude.
True,
right? And that dude could very fairly say, "Mind your business. Why are you looking in my car?"
He'd probably look at you and go, "Hey, mind your beeswax."
Right,
beeswax.
Oh, keeps giving. I feel like I'm going to hear this a lot. This is great.
Yeah.
Welcome to the new bit that won't die for the next 2 years.
It doesn't need to. That's good.
Austin, Texas powers.
Right.
Our next story is a bonus story. So if you want to listen to this, go to our Patreon and subscribe at least the $3 level. That's the Knights of Kevin level. And you'll get access to this and every other bonus story that we do.
Bonus. I wanted 2.0 is me also trying to bring a little bit of a Michael Winslow vibe to us. Michael Winslow, dear audience, is the guy that did the funny sounds in Police Academy, the Police Academy films, which were, if you haven't seen them, they were a sort of a breakdown about what's wrong with the law enforcement system in America. Mm-hmm. Sort of like The Wire. They predate The Wire.
Many tackleberries.
Right.
Yes.
So, I've got kind of a review of our Patreon that I got today from Tony from the Swingin' Utters, who's a Patreon subscriber. You want to hear it?
Well, we can't.
That would be
come on,
gauche, right?
I think so. I think that's unless he talks about what pieces of shit we are, then we should absolutely listen to it. But if it's favorable, I don't know that we should.
There's some urine drinking in here.
Oh well. In that case,
there's the truth in there.
It says, so this is just for the people who are on the Patreon who are missing all the excitement.
Oh, yeah.
Well, they're all urine drinkers. So
I've started drinking my own urine regularly and on a steady regiment of Alpha Monkey Mindset pills. He trademarked the mindset, by the way.
Well, yeah, you have to. And I'm glad that I don't have to sue him.
And then it says, never been happier or healthier.
See?
That's what you get for $3 a month.
Tony, I can't wait to go on tour with you again, and we can have a big frothy glass of warm piss.
That's right. You guys could trade out piss. How great would that be?
Well, you don't want to do that. That's a little, Is
that not something? Is that not done?
Well, I'm just saying we'd have to get our pH levels checked.
Well,
so I'll give you a little taste before this story starts. It deals with religion and grilled cheese.
Oh, is this Virgin Mary on a sandwich?
No,
that's old news. Is this This is. Don't subscribe to Patreon for this. I'm sure you've heard this story.
This is not the Virgin Mary on a sandwich.
Oh, is it not? Well, then do subscribe to our Patreon.
I will say that sounds delicious right now.
Oh, have you not eaten dinner?
I sort of. Let's
talk about that for a while.
Part of the alpha brain monkey mindset is not eating at any time that anyone else did. I don't live by breakfast, lunch, dinner. Mm-hmm. I get food at what time I get food.
That's such a good power play. Just never eat when anyone else does.
Yeah.
Everyone's always waiting on you.
Yeah, that's me.
Oh, we know.
You know what? Us genius types don't work in the same plotting one step in front of the other.
You mean one foot in front of the other?
We fucking parkour our way up the sides of monuments.
So our next story comes to us from Sora News 24, which is a Japanese news blog.
Not George Soros News 24.
No, Sora.
That's right.
Okay, good. Because that guy owes me a check from a fucking thing that I went to.
Right.
So back in episode 42, we covered a story about a man in Japan who was arrested after using deepfake technology and artificial intelligence to remove the mosaic boxes used to censor genitals in Japanese porn.
I think we dubbed him an INS hero.
Sorry to interrupt. The INS hero. The INS hero then sold this bootleg, uncensored porn through his own website. As a refresher to our listeners, Japanese obscenity laws forbid explicit depictions of genitalia, so genitals are pixelated when they appear in Japanese pornography. The man was charged for copyright violations and the display of obscene electromagnetically recorded media, and on June 29th, we finally got a verdict in the case. The man was found guilty and sentenced to 2 years imprisonment. The judge, however, suspended the man's sentence if he does not offend for the next 3 years because the judge said the man had shown remorse. The man was also fined 2 million yen, or about $15,000. Now, this isn't too bad considering that the man reported an income from his videos of 11 million yen, or about $82,500.
And that's just what he reported, right?
I mean, I'm guessing all the transactions probably went through eBay. PayPal.
I think if you're in the business of contraband pornography, you might not report all of your earnings to the government.
Yeah.
I think that goes with it.
A little bit of crypto going in there.
Mm.
Then he's in trouble.
Yeah, apparently that's not a good investment right now.
Yeah.
Hey, but what goes down must go up, right?
What goes down must come up. Yeah, I think so. I think we're on the precipice of a real rocket total by the dip.
Anybody who knows anything knows that crypto is a threat to the global elite. And so what do? They initiate an inflationary period when people are going to be hesitant to invest in what is being branded as speculative markets. There's never been a more surefire bet than cryptocurrency.
That's some wild financial advice you're giving there, Brian.
Yeah, I don't believe it at all. I'm just going to reinvest in my baseball card collection. I think
that's a good idea too.
Yeah. You have that Mookie Wilson card, right?
You want to talk about baseball cards?
Not really.
Baseball cards. All right.
We should do a whole podcast just on that.
That's a good idea.
Yeah.
Did you know that the guy who had the robot, the Boz, on the hit TV show Riptide, famously has a wonderful baseball card collection?
Really?
Yeah. I forget that guy's name. That
Perry King?
It's a true story.
Does he have a Nolan Ryan?
I mean, I probably.
For the listeners, if you are a person of our age, when you grew up in the north central Texas area, you knew at least 6 kids who claimed they were related to Nolan Ryan.
And the Von Erichs.
And the Von Erichs.
They might have been related to the Von Erichs. There were
Might
a lot
have
of
been,
those.
yeah. That family fucked around.
Oh, man. And they all, but 1 or 2, have died tragically.
By their own hands.
Some real sad mental illness in that family.
Yeah.
So moving back to the story, I don't know, what do you got on the man's sentence? What do you think, 2 years?
Well,
yeah.
I think it's bullshit. I mean, I can't believe that a country that kind of permissive in every other way is so weird about the genitals thing. It is really bizarre because Japan's pretty well, I don't know. There's a lot of crazy sex stuff. Like the things they do allow. I mean, maybe that's why there's so many drawings of tentacles entering every orifice on a gal is because you just can't see regular genitals. Huh? Maybe if there was just regular ass porn over there wouldn't be so many bukkakis and things like that. They made a word for a thing you can do over there.
Man, islands are you would assume. I wonder if this is true. If there's some anthropologists could say, well, yeah, historically islands have always been more conservative than nations that have more land borders because it's a lot easier to secure the import and export of items on an island. So since it's easier to control, the control happens naturally.
Certainly easier than places that have more land, barns, and nobles.
Thank you for saving me from an attempt to almost make a real point about something.
You're welcome. Well, I don't know. I'm glad he's not going to jail. It sounds like there's some.
Well, he could, if he reoffends, he will go to jail.
He's not going to.
I bet the judge is on his list of buyers.
Oh,
yeah, probably. I don't know. It sounds like the judge has to give him that sentence, but to let someone off, to sentence you and then let you off, that feels like some kind of I gotta do this and I gotta say this, but I know we all look at T-Jube, we all go to RedTube, we all go to Pornhub, we all go to OnlyFans, we all go to Cam Soda, we all go to
Mike knows all of them.
Sex WebTube, we all go to SexTube. Well, I don't know. I'm hoping he gets back to the good work that he's been doing as soon as he can. Maybe just start doing it again, and then just don't distribute it. Just collect it until Japan changes its draconian laws.
Bold statement.
Draconians. One of those terms.
Well, I mean, yeah, they're from Kryn. From the Dragonlance novels.
Oh my god!
If you kill them, they will explode.
So, Mike, do you have your podcast corner, right?
Yes. Sometimes on the podcast we talk about things and people don't know about it. And as you know, dear listeners, we have been in the middle, or now we're at the very end of the Glen A Larsonaissance, and I feel like we've covered the rise of the Glen A Larsonaissance, but now I want to talk about the fall. We've got I feel like we've covered most of the big shows. There's one show that I just want to briefly go over that we have not mentioned. And like many shows, Glen A. Larson was trying to rip off stuff. We'll get more into that later. But at one point he decided, I need to take something from The Road Warrior.
What?
So we created a show called The Highwayman.
Oh, yeah.
We've discussed this before when we talked about Jacko. One of these, one of these, and one of these. Oh, one of these. And it was Jacko and Sam Jones who played Flash Gordon in the movie. And funny enough, quit acting for a while to become like a Merc Ryan. He like quit acting to become like a literal like mercenary for some people. But and it was a show and it was made everyone excited. The opening was this really cool shot thing with this crazy, there's like semis that Road Warrior had to use. It's this crazy looking semi that has this, looks like a plane has sort of been attached to it. It can't fly. There's no wings, but it's as if they molded it in. Then you got Jocko who's running around going, yeah, but it's actually incredibly boring. It was a really awful show.
How many episodes did you watch for this?
Oh, the whole season.
Oh, wow.
I haven't slept. So he did that. There was Nightman, which we mentioned, that had a brief thing that Manimal had a crossover on. And he actually Glenn Larson worked on the new Battlestar Galactica that was pretty different. It was, I don't know, the roughest of rough concepts with that, but it turns out some of the aliens or some of the robots were actually people, and it was a whole thing. It had Edward James Olmos in it.
Yes.
Chemo from Stand and Deliver.
Almost got him there.
If you were our age, you watched the movie Stand and Deliver in math class once a year. And
yes, you did.
So, that's when he kind of fell off after a while. But problem is, like I said with Glen Larson, he often was accused of plagiarism, of theft. Despite his success, he had a lot of, he was just kind of perceived as this guy with a lack of originality. And like I said in one episode, Harlan Ellison once referred to him as Glen Larceny for the similarities between Larson's shows and blockbusters. So anytime there's a kind of sci-fi thing that was really big, you could expect about 2 years later there would be a show that would be a very watered down version of that. In James Garner had a beef with Glen Larson. In his autobiography, The Garner Files, that I've read before, it's actually pretty good, stated that Larson stole a number of plots from the Rockford Files, which was James Garner's production company, and then used them for his own shows simply by changing the dialogue minimally and using different character names. Garner's group complained to the Writers Guild. Larson was fined, and an episode of Larson's series Switch called Death by Resurrection had the writing credits revised to give sole credit to the writers of the Rockford Files episode, "This case is closed," as it was very clearly the basis of the Switch episode. Nevertheless, Garner felt that the fine had taught Larson nothing when he persisted in plagiarism and later copied the theme music from the Rockford Files for one of his shows. Woo! Garner stated that Larson subsequently showed up on the Rockford set, put his arm around Garner and said, "I hope there's no hard feelings, Jim." After Larson ignored a warning by Garner to take his arm off him, Garner claims that he punched Larson so hard that Larson flew across the curb into a motorhome and out the other side. I don't know if you knew that James Garner was that tough. That he could
like a cartoon.
He had punch powers like the Hulk. TV expert Thomas Duke Miller stated that he once asked Garner if he would work with Larson on any other TV show, and Garner said, "Only if we need a dead body."
Wow.
Strong words from James Garner.
Yeah, Maverick.
He got sued on a bunch of shows. I think the $6 Million Man, Quincy, Battlestar Galactica, Buck Rogers, Magnum PI, and Knight Rider all had people coming after him, because it was one of those things. Once a couple people went after him, everybody kind of saw like, oh, this is, this guy steals from everybody. Right. And I don't know that he lost all those, but those are like all the entities that came with him.
I have a question for you real quick before we move on. So a couple weeks ago, you mentioned that the Lamborghini and Automan was Glen A Larson's Lamborghini. Did he steal that?
The Lamborghini was stolen from
Robin Masters.
But Glenn died of esophageal cancer, age 77. November 14th, 214. He's buried at Rose Hill Burial Park in Oklahoma City, Oklahoma.
Oh, wow.
So I would like to suggest that when we do our tour, when we go to Oklahoma City and play the Oklahoma Dome, we maybe take us and the patrons, Oklahoma patrons, do a little field trip all the way out there to honor. The only other show really worth noting that I remember that affected our life that's going to come up in here is the show Quincy. Quincy M.E. And it was Jack Klugman who played I can't remember, Felix or Oscar. I think he was Oscar on the Odd Couple. He was a doctor, but he was like a forensic doctor, I think, and he solved murders. And I never really watched Quincy. He was a little older than me, but there's a really famous episode where Quincy has to solve a murder involved in the punk scene. Yeah. And this was like really early in the punk scene. So there's a really great I'm really fascinated by early Hollywood portrayals of punks and punk rock because it's so over the top. They're like just kind of feral animals that can barely talk. They're more road warrior than like music fan. They're more like apocalyptic scavenger. But there's a lot of really great. I believe the band in the show is called, and I might be confusing this and Chips. I'll have to do more research, but I believe the band might be called Pain. I think the band in Chips is Pain.
Okay.
Anyway, later on there was a band that called themselves the Quincy Punks in honor to the TV show Quincy. At some point we'll do a whole episode of punks in early Hollywood portrayal, but
nice.
That would be good.
As for now, we look to the stars when we think of Glen Larson. And I can only imagine that he is on Planet Kolob, which is Mormon heaven, as we all know, celebrating, driving around a celestial Lamborghini, looking at various shows being produced on Earth now. What's your Marvels and your Star Warses and your Fast and your Furiouses, and thinking in his head what watered down, lukewarm versions of them he could churn out. And maybe on Wednesday nights in heaven, when you sit down with a big old hot dog that's good for you, that's made of pure nitrate, not just parts of nitrates in it, and it's slathered in ketchup or not ketchup, because it's heaven and you get to choose, and nobody is better or worse for it. And you sit down and you're watching a show called Knight Rider, but with titties. And it's a show about Knight Rider, but they also show titties in it.
And is that the title?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Knight Rider, but with titties.
I'd watch that.
Because then I think Glen A. Larson always wanted to show nudity, specifically female chest nudity and male full frontal nudity. And I think in heaven, Mormon heaven, Planet Kolob, he's getting his chance. So, to you, Glen A. Larson, I give you the Mormon celestial salutes of Papua New Guinea.
What?
To the stars!
Wow.
Yeah. Where do you think we'll go next? There's all kinds of different places of things.
Stephen J. Cannell? Sit, Ubu, sit, good dog.
I'm not going to lie. I am eyeing a certain Donald P. Belisario. Is it time for a Belisario-sance?
When is it not?
I mean, not during Larsonaissance season, but we're just out of that now.
Right. You have to transition into the new.
Yeah.
I was going to ask, when we're in Oklahoma, can we pick up that copy of Sabrina the Teenage Witch?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, damn.
Wow, that's a call back.
That's what that is.
So that wraps up another week of the International News Service. Find us across social media at International News Pod. Email us at internationalnewspod@gmail.com. The best way to find out if you're still in this dimension, the proper dimension, is to make sure INS is still available. And the best way to do that is to make sure all your friends are listening. Check out the INS merch store at Redbubble and our Patreon. We'll see you next week.
To the stars!
Thank you for listening to the International News Service. Don't forget to rate, review, and subscribe to the podcast. INS, the news you need.